behind your breaking off with Island Records?
A lot of things. It was the record company was bought by Polygram, and it was originally a Warner Brothers company. And during the period of changeover, was right at the same time as when the Color Code album came out in America. And so during the first year that I was with Color Code, I was caught in the middle of the whole changeover from Polygram to from WEA to Polygram. So I was playing concerts in America, you know, in front of 5,000-6,000 people a night, and having, you know, no records in the stores, because I was sort of right in the middle of the two. One record company didn't want to work my record anymore because they couldn't make any money off of it, and the other record company couldn't start working it yet legally until a certain date. And that was frustrating for me, but I could live with that. But the problem I was having was Polygram was going through a complete restructure, and so during that 1 year period, there was three different presidents of the American label. I mean, one president would be there for 3 months and he'd get fired, and another president was there and he got fired. You know, it's just like impossible to get anything going. And luckily for me, for my sake, the press on my album was so overwhelming around the world. I was still able to tour the world and work the record for, you know, almost a year without having a hit and without selling the kind of numbers that I would usually need to sell, because I think people realize I would have sold a lot more records if I would have indeed had the proper promotion in America, you know, the records there in the store.
So you were getting screwed in the changeover there, but how did the situation resolve itself? What exactly?
Well, what happened was, I think Island Records in the long run is really just going to be a catalog label. I mean, between you and me, I mean, they won't say that, but I mean, everybody was leaving. Anthrax, everybody was leaving the label, and although I was top priority at the label, being top priority at a label that has absolutely no power, you know, it was like I didn't want to spend another, you know, $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 on another album and tour and videos, and find myself $1 million in debt to a record company. I didn't feel like they were going to be in a situation where they could actually sell the amount of records that I felt I should sell, and they were going through such a changeover. I was actually offered the opportunity to leave the label. And at the time, my manager, Bill Graham, who was still alive, you know, always wanted me to get off that label because they were very frustrated with the label. So we took the opportunity, and it was a good situation for me because I left the label owing them probably, you know, maybe $300,000-$400,000 still, and that debt was wiped free and clear. So I walked away with a year's worth of promotion on the road, knowing all radio people, you know, being, you know, fairly well known around the world, and I was completely like a brand new artist now. So when I would sign my new deal, it would be like they were signing somebody who's already known, but yet I wouldn't owe anybody an override point or any money or anything, and I was free and clear. So it was pretty good.
Why did they wipe the debt?
Because they, you know, we were all, you know, they didn't want to screw me over. They knew they were in a position that they were letting bands go like crazy, and Chris Blackwell didn't want to screw me, but he didn't want to hold my career up either, you know. And so the loss to them was no big deal, and they wanted to see me go on and do well, and so they just let me go. It was very nice.
At the time, there were some artists who were maybe doing stuff in a similar vein, like artists who were incorporating stuff like funk rhythms into a hard rock context, like yourself, and they were doing pretty well. Did you feel like you were kind of getting the shaft? Because
nah, because always the critics and always everybody knew that I was the real deal. I mean, I'm not worried about what anybody says, man. You know what I mean? You look at my record, I play with the guys who originate the music. You know what I mean? Such as now with my new album. You know, I'm not really an imitator. I just take my influences of what I've done in my career, and it's what comes out naturally for me. It's not like I tried to jump on any fad or be a part of any fad or anything. I just do what's natural to me. That's why I was real happy about the EP that Island put out when I left Island Records called Stuff, because it showed my demo tapes that I had made in 1986 and 87 that are still now completely in vogue for what's going on today. And in Europe and places like that, I get that little EP got like full pages in Kerrang and all these big publications. And it's so funny because, I mean, when I was recording those songs back in 1986 and 87, people in the record business thought I was crazy, you know, and now it's sort of like, whoa, you know, I was onto something, you know.
You would have sold more records. Would your first album have sold better if you were on a different label?
Definitely. Oh yeah. I mean, you can't. You know, every night it was heartbreaking. I would sign autographs in my American tour with Joe Satriani. We were on a sold out tour. The press was amazing. Every night I would have hundreds of kids afterwards. I'd go sign autographs after the concerts. Hundreds and hundreds of kids. And I can't tell you, every single time that I had kids tell me, I can't find your record, or I had to order your album. Now, for a new artist to be on tour in America and be playing in a city, in a sold-out concert at a huge theater, and have kids having to tell you they have to order your album, there's something seriously wrong. Where every other band has, you know, a full in-store promotion going for every city you're on, you know. And when I was in Europe, I had that. I had serious support, and in Europe, I did really well.
At the time, you probably could have found the album easier in Japan than you could in the States.
You found the record. My A&R person came to Japan 3 days after it came out in America, and it was already had a huge display in the Virgin Megastore, or the Tower here, or something, with like a huge display saying this, you know, this album, and it was an import. The import was out 3 days after it came out in America here, where you still could barely find it in the stores in America. So yeah, I mean, I don't know what it was in Japan. It was just like boom, you know. In Europe, Kerrang magazine went as far as to call Island Records UK twits or something like that, like, because they were reviewing my import, and it got a 5K review and then 5 stars in Raw. I mean, every magazine was doing, and the Island in England didn't even have it on the release schedule, and it was selling like as an import, and they were saying, you know, these guys better get this shit together and get this thing ready to go, you know. So it was really strange. It was just complete. The company was just chaos.
If indeed there was one main reason, what was the main reason for dissolving Color Code?
Well, there wasn't one main reason. It seemed like it was a couple of things. One was I work at a pace that's like really fast. If you ever look at my career, in 1 week's time I would be producing Was Not Was, and I'd be working, you know, with Warrant, and then I'd be scoring a movie, and then I'd be writing, you know, I just try to, that's the only way I can keep from getting bored. And with Color Code, it was in the first time I was in a situation where I was the boss. It was, you know, I worked this band so hard, and we kicked ass. I mean, I literally worked that band like a coach of a sports team, man. It was like, you know, we worked so hard. Every night we'd come off the stage with our heads down thinking we sucked. Because, God dang it, because we didn't realize that we were kicking the shit out of every band that we would play with. And we were getting amazing reviews, but we always felt like we just felt like we sucked. And it really wasn't until Japan that we realized, man, you know, I think, you know, our Japanese tour was just finally the first time that we looked at each other and said, man, I think this was pretty good, you know. And when we went on to Europe, we were in a whole new attitude of, you know, we're doing really well now. And we'd go to Europe and we were just, you know, we were blowing bands off the stage, and we were, you know, Stevie steals the show, and it was the captions in the magazines, and we were feeling like, wow, you know, maybe we really are a good band. But then right when we started feeling that way, we started to feel also like, you know, I started feeling like, what am I going to do now? And it seemed like all the new music I was working on just wasn't, you know, right, and I was being rushed into making a new album, and I knew I was gonna make the wrong album, and it just seemed like Winston and CJ were very unhappy with the fact that they felt ignored. They felt like I was getting all the glory, and they felt like nobody cared about them because magazines would always come and want to talk to me. You know, and I tried to explain to them, well, I had played with Rod Stewart, and I had done this, and I had a hit record with this. And so I was the person they could focus on to get a story across. And sooner or later, as soon as we were successful, magazines would want to speak to them more. But they felt like the record company was sabotaging them. That's honestly how they felt at the time. They don't feel that way now. But so they were really unhappy, and they just didn't appreciate what we were doing, and I started to feel like, you know, I needed more inspiration as a musician. And finally I was there looking at myself saying, what am I going to do? And I would look at the band, and the band would be looking to me saying, what are we going to do? And I'd be like, well, I'm not sure. Let's try this. And I do that. And I go, well, yeah, let's try this. I do that. And pretty soon I had a hodgepodge of a lot of different songs, but not one cohesive, powerful album. And it was just very frustrating for me, and I needed that inspiration. So that's right about the time when the Island Records thing broke up. So I figured when the Island thing happened, let's just take some time off. And we took some time off, and we just never really got back together. You know, we got back together for a minute to come to Japan, and but by that time I was already discussing with Bootsy Collins. Bootsy wanted to make the Color Code record with me, and I was already on to new heights and new things.
I guess by the time that the band sort of dissolved on its own, you really weren't worried about the next step then. You were already way past just caring about what would become the Color Code, and you were already working on a new project.
Well, to me, I'm going to make another Color Code album. But Color Code to me wasn't like, here's Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. It was really like the Stevie Salas Color Code. It was how like Bill Graham described it. It was introducing you to all the colors and flavors of all my influences in music that come across on this little array of, you know, of a spectrum of sound. So Color Code is how I describe my music and my whole trip. So I'm going to make another Color Code album. It just may not be with those musicians. But yeah, by that time, I was more excited about... I mean, I immediately got home from Japan last year after I came and did those private shows, and went straight to Cincinnati to work with Bootsy Collins to start writing songs for this new album. And when I started to work with Bootsy, all of a sudden, I was excited again. It was like, it was like being in Rod Stewart again, where I was like a kid looking up going, you know, is this cool? And them going, yeah, and me going, great. And as opposed to me having to tell everybody what to do, it was sort of like I had people feeding me, and I was going, whoa, and I was able to stretch out. And it was just good for me to kind of fill my head up with some new ideas.
Most people think of Bootsy, when they hear the name Bootsy, they think of P-Funk.
Right.
And we do look at Bootsy as a funk person,
right,
who does nothing but funk. Does that stand in the way? Does that stand in any way of your making music, making the kind of music you want? It's not an impediment.
No, that was actually the reason Bootsy wanted to make an album with me. Bootsy called me right before I came to Japan, and he was, I knew Bootsy's ability from working with Bootsy for so many years. Bootsy knew his ability, but Bootsy has been trapped in a stereotype, like what you just said. People think of Bootsy almost like a mythical character. I mean, I know, I actually had Stu Ham say to me, and Stu Ham's a top bassist in America, as far as like in the reader's poll of Guitar Magazine. Stu say to me, does Bootsy actually play? I mean, he thought maybe Bootsy was more or less like a guy who held the bass and it was more keyboards, and he just sort of like... Yeah. And Bootsy is like, I mean, give me a break. He's the guy who played Sex Machine with James Brown. I mean, he's the guy, he is such an innovator. Well, I knew that. What Bootsy was saying to me, he was very frustrated that people always want to stereotype Bootsy. People want to say, Bootsy, let me hire you to come and do this because this is what you do. See, Bootsy is like myself, but 100 times more. He, I can go play with James Brown, and then I can go play with Motley Crue. And Bootsy can do the same thing, but he doesn't get that opportunity because people see him in one light. So he wanted to join Color Code is what it was. We were going to make a Color Code album, call it the Bootsy Tapes. It was going to be me, a drummer, and Bootsy on bass. And that was the original plan. Bootsy wanted to get out and be in the background more, not be, here's Bootsy Collins. He wanted to be like people to come and just know his name like the legend but never really heard him, and come and watch him play in my concert and go, guys like Billy Sheehan and all these kind of guys who have only heard of his name but never really heard him play. That was his goal, because he wanted to break out of the stereotype of that Bootsy is just a funk maniac. And I think when I first started playing advanced cassettes of the new album for people were all like, this is a rock record. People were expecting it to be like, like Parliament Funkadelic or like Red Hot Chili Peppers or something. I don't know.
You don't have much trouble understanding how you would get linked up with Bootsy. It was rather unexpected to learn that Buddy Miles was the third leg of this unit.
Well, that's what changed it. It was going to be, like I said, Stevie Salas' Color Code album, featuring, Bootsy Collins on whatever. We weren't sure who we were going to use on drums yet. Bootsy and I wrote some songs. I flew to New York, talked with Bill Laswell. Bootsy had talked with Bill Laswell. We actually called Bill because we just wanted to cut a few demos in Bill's studio. Well, they would ended up being masters, but Bill's got a nice studio. And so Bill says, well, God, I'd like to, get involved. But for Bill to want to get involved, he goes, well, who are you going to use on drums? And he didn't want to use Winston. He wanted something else. So after our meetings, I had to fly to Canada to work with Jeff Healey. And I was in Canada, and I got a call from Bill Laswell, and he was all excited. And Bill Laswell never gets excited. I mean, Bill Laswell's like, he's Mr. Mystery, right? He is so excited. He's calling me up. For Bill to call me and be so, he's going, just think about this. Just consider this. And he goes, Buddy Miles on drums. And I was like, I really didn't know what Buddy Miles sounded like. I didn't know what he played like. I didn't have the Band of Gypsies album. I don't have any of that stuff. And I said, well, does he still play? I mean, does he make music? I mean, and a lot of people's reaction was, wow, is he still around? Is he alive? Buddy's had an incredible life. He's been in prison a few times. He's played with all the best people in the world. He's had an incredible life. So I was a little nervous about it. But Bootsy, his brother Catfish, who used to be in the JBs, had seen Buddy playing at a club in Cincinnati, just a little prior to that, and said that Buddy was playing amazing. And Buddy was clean from drugs. He was singing his ass off. He was playing, and Bootsy got real excited because Bootsy and Buddy had been talking about starting a band and playing together since Bootsy was in Parliament and Buddy was in the Band of Gypsies. I mean, they have been huge fans of each other, and they used to hang out in the old days and always talk. God, one of these days we got to do this together, because actually Buddy had played on a couple of Funkadelic tracks, and it was something they always wanted to do for 20 years, and then finally here it was this opportunity. So Bootsy had called me, and Bootsy said, if you don't do this, it's cool, but I'm telling you right now, this is a serious opportunity for you. And Bootsy's like my big brother, and I said, all right, if you think so, I'll do it. And so that's sort of how it happened.
Wow. Huh. So it was almost like it was preordained.
Yeah.
And also, you were kind of the last guy to know what happened.
It was. Bootsy just told me that, people are going to say, how the hell did this young kid get to front this rhythm section? It's like almost like a storybook rhythm section, you know what I mean? It's like, and I didn't think about it, and the full impact of it still hasn't really hit me yet, I mean, when I sit down and I look at this magazine, all of a sudden I see, wow, my name's on top, with these two motherfuckers. It's like, wow. Yeah.
He recalls you being a little bit, you're not being comfortable being compared like to Jimi Hendrix, like when you first came out, but
yeah.
With Buddy Miles.
That was my biggest thing. I said, God dang it, man, everyone's going to sit around and say I'm just trying to be Jimi Hendrix now because I'm using Buddy Miles. And Bootsy said to me, hey, who cares? You just make a great album. These guys are, and let's face it, Buddy Miles has not only played with Jimi Hendrix. Buddy Miles has played with Carlos Santana. He's played with Jeff Beck. He's played with Eric Clapton. He's played with, Muddy Waters. He's played with Sly Stone. I mean, he's played in Funkadelic. And he's played with everybody. I mean, he's played with every great guitar player of our time. You know what I mean? All the greatest in pop music history. I'm pretty sure, the classics. He's been a part of a situation with all those musicians. And so, you can look at it that way, too.
Yeah. A serious resume. Serious resume. You touched on this a little while ago. Maybe you could elaborate a little bit more. In Color Code, all three guys were, relative newcomers. I mean, people have got the idea that
just sort of a youthful, youthful type of power.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas this time around, you're performing with bona fide legends. Do you think that affects you in any way? You said like you got a real rush playing with Bootsy,
right?
And it was like he had just so much more to offer,
right?
So I guess Buddy also has equally as much or even more to offer. So what's the difference now?
Well, I should clarify something. They have more to offer as far as pure, deep vibe. When you sit in a room with these two guys and play, it's like walking into St. Patrick's Cathedral, or it's like walking, it's like walking on the hallowed ground, man. I mean, you feel history, you feel everything. I mean, we had times in the session where Buddy Miles would start talking to me about Jimi Hendrix, because I'd say something that pissed him off, and he's like, "Oh, man, you sound just like Jimmy used to come to me." And the next thing he'd bust out crying, or something, man. I mean, but it was like serious, and I'm not that deep, man. I'm still a kid. I'm sitting there like this, just going, "Well, I can't even begin to feel what he's feeling." But Bootsy could, because Bootsy's been through it too, and Bootsy's, there to. It was really deep, man. I mean, it enabled me to play. I think when people listen to my guitar playing in this album, I'm going to sound like I'm 1,000 years old. You know what I mean? I mean, I sound like I'm an ancient Indian wise man or something. To me, when I hear my solos on like The Walls Came Down, it's like, God, where did I get all that serious? Where is that coming from? Where that isn't visible on my color code work. But at the same time, there's the other half of me that's still the youthful. I want to be on top of it. I want to push the beat. I want to be a little more immature with the beat. But to me, that's new, and that's my sound, like color code, which I can't do with these guys. So I need the balance of both. I think what I did here is I took a seat back, and it's like I went away to go study with the gurus to become a deeper, more heavier person. And then I'm going to come back, and I'm going to make another album that's more me, but yet I'm going to bring with me all this knowledge that I've learned on my pilgrimage or something,
Well, you say that, like, the youthful side of you, every now and then it feels like that's sort of challenging these guys?
Listen to Shake It. Shake It. Uh-huh. Now, Shake It didn't challenge Bootsy, though. Now, see, Bootsy is like a kid. Bootsy is like a reborn child, I swear to God. He's been through so much. Now he's up at 6:30 in the morning. He goes to bed at 2:30 in the morning, and all he does all day is make music. Every kind of music, every style, whatever, man. All day long, as long as he's making music. He comes on tour, he's sitting in his room with a 4-track. Buddy, yeah, I mean, Bill Laswell, they didn't want to do Leakin'. They didn't want to do Shake It. Me and Bootsy really had to push for Shake It. We thought Shake It, Shake It, let's face it, is a corny-ass song. It's not deep like some of the other material, but to me, Shake It will probably be one of the most popular songs with the younger people who aren't ready yet to comprehend a song like, Love Obsession or The Walls Came Down or something, So Shake It was more the extreme of coming towards Stevie Salas, and Love Obsession was the extreme towards the older style with Buddy, where if you listen to my guitar playing on Love Obsession, you probably never heard me play guitar like that, and I never have. I would in the end solo, instead of doing the usual Stevie Salas, completely take over the song with my solo and have everybody go, whoa, what a solo. I completely took a back seat to Buddy Miles's ad-libs, and it was like I took a back seat to Buddy. And it took a lot of discipline for me to do that, and I was very uncomfortable with it.
Did those guys ever offer that kind of advice? Well, not offer advice, but actually give like orders like, you're a little bit heavy-handed here, Steve.
Completely. I mean, on the song Got a Feeling, I wrote that song in Japan when I was here last year. I mean, I'm quoted as a co-writer with Buddy because Buddy came up with one chord that I used in the song. But I mean, I wrote that song here in Japan.
He came with one chord.
Yeah, but it was.
So he gets co.
Well, yeah, he gets a co-writer. I mean, when it works out in percentages, it still works out to my favor, like considerably. But yeah, I mean, he came up with a chord change on it that I think is fascinating, and he deserves a writer credit on it. But I wrote that song here in Japan, and I was playing it at sound checks with Winston and CJ. And that song never worked. It just didn't work. It was like almost good. As soon as I laid down in the room with that, it's the first song I tried. All of a sudden, there it was. It was like, whoa. And then all of a sudden, I found myself. Buddy would stop, and Bootsy would stop. Whoa, Stevie, man. quit pushing right here. You're pushing here. Don't lay back with it.
Okay, this is what I want to know. When they say they're pushing, what exactly are they referring to?
Well, like if you listen to this album is like, listen to the color code. It's like da-doom, da-da, da-doom, da-da, da, da-doom, da. And then you listen to this record, it's just like boom, boom, pa, pa, boom, boom, boom. It's like the tempo is the same, but man, instead of being on the top or ahead of the beat, we're like on the farthest back of the beat that you could possibly be. And that's the key to these old players and like Led Zeppelin and all those bands. It's so far back, but it doesn't drag. It just feels fat, And a lot of new bands today don't feel fat like that. Deeper, man. And that's just these guys' wisdom in their school or where they came from.
I was wondering, obviously they have a reserve of, they're legends, and, you can get the fat sound, the deep sound, but at the same time, they're much older than you, so do you ever get sort of tired of, dealing with older people in their older ways?
It's so funny, my whole career is like, I was a kid, I met George Clinton. George Clinton's an old person. I was a George guy. I met Bootsy. Bootsy is not nearly as old as George, but still he's an older, somebody I work with. First tour I do, Rod Stewart. Rod's, 50 years old. I'm playing. All I ever work with, it seems like, is old legends. I became a staff producer for David Kirschenbaum, who's also an old. That was my hang. That was my person. I produced Was Not Was. I mean, Don Was is no spring chicken. Now he's the biggest producer in the world. I was producing him when I was 23 years old. So, I mean, I've always been a kid working with these really great older people, so I'm used to that. I don't seem to relate well to younger musicians because I don't like to sit around and talk about, gear and stuff like that. I like to learn and grow.
At the same time, what do you think all these older artists wanted to tap into you? What do you think you had to offer them?
Maybe that youthful energy they felt like they were starting to lack. I think that's what it really was with Rod Stewart. Rod told his manager the day he met me, I was not nearly qualified for that gig with Rod Stewart, but Rod had told his manager that he met me, and I reminded him of himself when he was my age. I was, just cocky and ready to go, and Rod gave me that shot. And when we were on tour, instead of everybody standing in the background like usually on a Rod Stewart tour and letting Rod be in the front doing his thing, I didn't know that I was supposed to do that. So I was up in the front, and I was shaking my ass and my hair, and the girls started going crazy, in the show, and people would say to Rod, God, that show was the best band you ever had, because I'm running around the stage, and pretty soon Rod and I are singing in the mic together like him and Woody used to, and Rod was starting to feel like a kid again, and Rod was rocking. I mean, it was just like the energy really came off, and I think that's what it was. Certainly it wasn't my musicianship, because I was definitely not qualified for that gig.
You weren't qualified. I mean, Rod Stewart doesn't do stuff that challenging.
Bullshit, man. When you got to go back and you got to play all those old songs that Woody used to play and all those songs that Jeff Beck used to play, I mean, not so much now he's not challenging, but you listen to his he's got a 20-year history of, like, amazing songs, amazing. I was like all energy, all of a sudden I have to play Maggie May on acoustic guitar in front of 100,000 people a night. I've never even played an acoustic guitar before except when I was a kid. And I'm sitting there, I don't know how to make it not feedback. I've never been on tour before. I don't know I don't know how to do any of these things. And then I found myself playing Maggie May like if I was playing What I Like About You or something. And Rod would be like, what are you doing? Where's the finesse? And I realize now, oh yes, I just have to relax. I have to, so that's what I mean.
Yeah. It seems like your disregard for staying in, concerning yourself with a single style is almost what characterizes you. You just kind of flit around freely. I guess that's your...
It's my personality, too. That's how I am. I mean, people get pissed at me in my personal life too, because I just have a lot of freedom, and I say I'm going to do something, and I do it, and I do what I want when I want, and it pisses girls off because girls can't seem to make me, cater to what they want me to be, and I like my freedom. That's probably why I haven't had a girlfriend in 4 or 5 years, because the same kind of freedom I have in my music, I like in my life. Someone will call me, like I came here from Mexico City, because a few days before that, someone said, Stevie, come down and do this thing for this Indian. And I don't have to say, I'm leaving for that. I just get on a plane and I'm gone. And I take, and it's like, one of these days I'm sure I'm going to have to settle down, but I like to have my complete freedom in all aspects of life.
That you're going to have to be a glut of older stuff. Let me clarify this. There's a glut of retro type stuff. You get older bands reforming. You get older records being re-released as CDs. You get younger guys copying what the guys did, 10, 20 years ago.
Right.
What do you think of that, the reaching back like that?
Well, sometimes it's good and sometimes it's bad. It all depends on the music. But, what's funny is my big joke I would tell the press in America right when I was winding down the first Color Code tour. Everyone's asking me, what are you going to do on the next album? And I said, well, I'm going to make an album, and I'm going to call it Stevie Salas Color Code Greatest Hits. Because all that was getting played on the fucking radio in America was all these old motherfuckers that were coming back and re-releasing their catalog with a couple of extra songs, and no new artists were getting any airplay. And I'm thinking, well, I'm just going to call my album Greatest Hits, so maybe they won't know I'm a new artist, and they'll think I'm one of these old guys coming back, and they'll play my record too, because it was like a joke, of course. But it was like, it's like enough for some of these people, man. I can't stand it when I see some band get back together and make horrible music, and then a record company spends $1 million on it and eats up everybody else's budgets and crowds the magazine so a new band can't get an ad in the magazine, But sooner or later, all of it falls to the wayside, and anything that's good will keep going, and anything that sucks will just keep falling to the wayside. It just.
It's a law of the market, I guess. Mm-hmm. It's gonna float to the top.
I think we need more experienced people at record companies, especially in America, though. I know so much more about working a record and how a record works in the whole scheme of things, from conception of recording to working the record and marketing the record, radio. I mean, these guys I deal with, I have to talk to in America, they've never even been on the road. They've never walked into a radio station. They've never had to sit down and do, marketing. They're just like people that just got out of school or something, and they're supposed to be running my career. It's like.
I guess originally the new outfit is supposed to be called just Third Eye, whereas in Japan it's Stevie Salas' Third Eye.
Mm-hmm.
Anything to say about that?
Yeah, I'm flattered by it. It wasn't my plan, and a lot of magazines, when they were interviewing me, some magazines interviewed me over the phone, and they had said Stevie Salas' Third Eye, and I go, why'd you say that? And they said, well, that's what it's being called. And I was like, wow, let's face it, man, these two guys I'm playing with are much, much more famous than me.
Well, yes and no.
I guess, yeah.
Younger people, they're not going to know.
Right. I'm glad it's called Stevie Salas' Third Eye. I now that I'm comfortable with it, and I talked to Bootsy about it, and Bootsy actually really wanted it that way, because Bootsy, really, his goal was musically to go out and play music and show all these people who've never seen him play what he sounds like and what an amazing musician he is. And his other goal is to keep pushing me more and more towards becoming maybe an Eric Clapton of our time or a Jeff Beck or something. And he wants my name to really gain a lot from these guys doing this for me. I mean, they're helping me a lot, I think. And so maybe at the end of the day it'll be good, Yeah, me too. I hope it happens. We have every plan on doing it, but it's not like before where it's like we're all sitting around in L.A. and we can go rehearse in my studio in L.A. and we just go play gigs. It's like a full production. You got Buddy Miles in Chicago. You got Bootsy in Cincinnati. You got me, so. But we're planning. We're going to try to do a tour around the end of February if possible, starting in Japan and doing quite a few dates around the world, I guess.
Sono un